Hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Andre and I'm your bookworm. Today we do not have a book review. We'll do something different. We did this last year and I thought it was fun. I want to show you what I've been reading, even though you watch it throughout the year. But so this one, we're going to be doing a 2024 wrapped review on the story graph. Now, if you don't know what the story graph is, it's just another website like Goodreads, and I tend to use it a bit more, even though on the book reviews I talk about Goodreads a lot and like the number of reviews, the number of ratings, everything. It's just because Goodreads is the most used app. However, the story graph I think has a lot more functionality. It has pretty much the same things as the Goodreads website has. However, this one provides with a lot more stats, and I'm a bit obsessed with the stats and seeing like my reviews throughout the year, how many pages am I reading, if I'm keeping up or not. So I like to see that. And yeah, so let's jump into it and see what 2024 was for me in terms of reading. So as you can see, this is the Storygraph website. I don't know if you've ever explored. Go on and sign up for it, because I think the more people it has, the better everyone will be off of for, because they'll see that it is successful, and I think it'll just be better. Anyways, you have the explore to explore books, the stats, the challenges, just like the number of books, number of pages, number of hours that you can read, and then community, and they also do some giveaways. But anyways, this is my 2024 reading wrap up, and I finished 80 books, which I was very proud of because I challenged myself last year to do 75 books, and I was able to surpass it and do 80. So good on me. This year I've made 80 the challenge. So let's see if I can get to it and even surpass it. You guys need to keep me accountable to be sure that I can actually do that. The other thing was I read over 32,000 pages. That was also good because I think my page challenge was 28,000 if I'm not mistaken. So again, I surpassed it. This year is 32,000. Hopefully I can make it. It's quite hard. It averages on 400 pages per book, which doesn't seem that much, but when you take into account 80 books of that length, it can be quite challenging, but we'll see. My first and last books of the year were both One Piece, which is funny, and it's also surprising. I didn't realize I read 30 volumes this year, from the 25th to the 55th, and there were so many arcs going through that, so I think we went through a lot of story, and I enjoyed it. I mean, One Piece is fun all the time, and these last volumes were crazy with so many things happening. It was really fun and shocking, but also that emotional punch that was very, very good. But anyways, yeah, that was One Piece. Then we have a mood map of my reading. So this line just means how light or dark the books are. So the higher the line is, the lighter the books, and the darker the books, the lower they are. So my year started really light, and it went down in February, and it kept getting down and down. It never goes really down because I don't read that much grim dark or just dark fantasy or those type of books. So I'm glad that at least there is some variation. And it's funny because at the end of the year it started going up again, and I remember thinking that I wanted to finish my year with just lighter books. So that reflects here, and I think it's funny to see. This is pretty much the number of books and pages that I read last year, and this is one of the stats that actually shows across the year. You can check this every day when you come to the website. So as you can see, the blue line is the number of books, where I read very few books in January and April, and I think this month of January 2025 will be the same because my reading is quite slow, but the months where I read the most were July with 10 books and November with 9. So those were really, really good. Let's hope I can lift this a tiny bit up. And it's funny because the number of pages doesn't really match the number of books, because again, I might read a lot of One Piece volumes in 1 month, but they don't have that many pages. So it can change that. For example, March, even though I read 8 books, it only has 2,500 pages, whereas the month before, February, where I read 6 books, this has 3,000 pages. So as you can see, one doesn't really necessarily mean the other. So it's good to have these two stats so you can actually compare and see how you're going through your year. These are just the challenges that I was mentioning. I finished both. One was to read 80,000 pages. The other one, I think 80 books and 28,000 pages. So I finished both, was very happy for it, challenging myself this year. These are the genres I spent the most year in 2024. I mean, this one is pretty obvious, fantasy as the first one and manga as the second one, because again, I read 32 volumes, not 30, and fantasy books 71. And science fiction, a third. I didn't read that much science fiction. I'll try, I promise. I always promise this, but I will try to do more science fiction this year. And then 4 books that were related to LGBTQIA+, and 2 or 3 historical books. I'm curious to know which ones these are. And you can actually probably click on them. I don't want to click because this will take me out of the page, but if you click on this, it will take you to what books those exactly in this category they were. As for the longest and shortest books, longest, Lord of the Mysteries with almost 1200 pages. It was a long read, but it was fun, and I enjoyed it, and I'm going to read the second volume, which I think is another 1000 pages, but not right away. So we're waiting on that. It's just a fun read. Whenever I feel a bit low, maybe I'll pick it up and get on with it. And the shortest book was one of Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson's short stories, which is only 30 minutes long. It's an audiobook, very, very short, and it was fun. It gave me some insight into things that were happening in the last book that I wasn't aware, and yeah, it was fun, I would say. Not amazing, but for the fans of Wheel of Time, I think it's a must. So yeah. Now it says the average length of the books I read was 404 pages, and it took me around 14 days to finish each book. Now, these are a bit not necessarily true. Okay, 400, the average, that's fine, because it depends with a lot of One Piece, and then, for example, Lord of the Mysteries, which has 1200 pages, it averages on 400. The amount of time it took me, it's again another average, because I was buddy reading books, so I wouldn't necessarily read them as fast as I could. I would just read a couple of chapters every week, and that's why it took a lot longer to finish than, for example, One Piece, which I would finish in 1 day or less. So on average, 14 days, but that means that I'm reading several books at the same time, which it's true. This just shows exactly what I was saying, because the book that I spent the least amount of time reading was One Piece Volume 50, which it was less than a day. I put it as that I was reading on 1 day, and a few hours later I put it that I had finished it. And the longest one was Lord of Chaos, which took me 71 days, again, because I was buddy reading this book, and we were reading a couple chapters, sometimes more than a couple per week, and that's why it took this long. But if I were free reigning on this book, it would have been done in a week or less. The authors I spent the most in 2024, they will be no surprise for anyone, because the first one is Eiichiro Oda, which he's 31 books in first place because of the 31 volumes of manga that I read. Then we have Robert Jordan, Wheel of Time. Of course, I read 12 of the books in Wheel of Time this year, or not necessarily all the books, but also short stories and everything. So that's why it has 12. And Brandon Sanderson 6, because again, Brandon Sanderson collaborated in some for the Wheel of Time volumes, and then his own works. But I mean, this is a perfect top 3. I mean, couldn't be happier, because I love these 3 authors, so it matches my reading. Now, as for 2024, the average rating was 4.22, which is again biased towards the high, because I get a lot of recommendations of people that I trust in the terms of like what they read and if their tastes align with mine. So I don't go very crazy on readings. Lord of the Mysteries was one that I wasn't very sure about it, but it ended up well, and so my rating is quite high. And these are some of the 5-star books for 2024. We have 2 Wheel of Time books, a lot of One Piece volumes, because these ones were just amazing. And then we also have Equal Rights, which was a Terry Pratchett read that I was not expecting to have a 5 read, but I really enjoyed it because I thought it was such a fun and very thematic read, and I think it was really, really worth it to read it. And I'm very keen to read the next books in this series. Not only Weird Sisters, which I've read already and will post a review eventually, but then the next ones. I think there's still a lot of good things awaiting me in the Discworld. And these are the 2024 ratings. So as you can see, I only have one book with 1.5, and I think you know which one it is because I posted a review on this channel. And then we have a couple more books with lower scores, and then the scores start increasing and the number of books in them start increasing as well. So I gave 22 books 4.5 stars, which again, those are really good books. They are not amazingly perfect to get a 5 or a 4.75, but they're like right in that smack middle. And I think those are just like, those are books that I will recommend to a ton of people. And even the 4 and 4.25, although less, of course. But then we have 10 books for 5 and 9 for 4.75. So a lot of really good reads, I would say. So if you count 32, 41 books, half of my books were excellent, let's say. I think that's very good for 2024. Let's see how my graph looks next year. Hopefully it will be even more biased towards the right side, but we shall see. And then it says some months were better than others, with December being my highest average rating with 4.59. That's really good. It means that a lot of my books were very, very good. So I'm surprised. I ended up the year really well. And February was the least favorite with only 3.83. That's very low. Again, maybe it was the month I read this book, the 1.5 stars, and that really pushed that average to one side. But I guess that's it. And then July was the month I read the most because I read 4,144 pages. So it's interesting that it's not the month where I got the best or the worst scores, but it was the month where I read the most. Interesting. And then it compares a bit my stats with other users of the story graph. So, for example, The House in the Cerulean Sea was the book that was the most shelved this year, meaning that the book that I read, where most people also read it or put it on to read, things like that. So 402,000 people have shelved this book, and the least shelved is the other short story from Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson, A Fire in the Ways, which also Wheel of Time related, but only 150 people shelved this audiobook. So quite few people, and surprising. I thought there would be more, but I guess that's it. And then the highest rated book across all the books that I read was volume 44 of One Piece, which has a score of 4.63 out of 5. That's really high. I expected, because I remember there was some book that was very close to this, but I guess 4.63 is really hard to get. But yeah. And then it says I explored the works of 12 new authors, including T.G. Klune, which is The House in the Cerulean Sea, John Gwynne, which is the the Broken and the Bound, no, the Bound and the Broken series, which is composed by Valor, Ruin, the first one which I can't remember but I have here, which is Malice, Valor, Ruin, and then the last one which I haven't read yet, will read eventually. But yeah, those both good worlds, very different, couldn't be any more different, but I enjoy them in their own specificities, if that makes any sense. And of course, Brian McClellan, which also I read these three books here, which are the Powder Mage trilogy. Those were good, very, very innovative. I think the world was surprising. The characters were interesting. There were like parts where you go a bit down, but I think the magic systems really made a difference on how new and how fresh it felt. And also the setting. I mean, that French Revolution, Napoleon kind of setting was very new. I hadn't read anything like that. I mean, yeah, no, not anything like that. So, very good. I recommend the three of them. Of course, be aware of what genre you want because those are very different genres. Yeah. And 74 of the books I read were part of a series, which, oh my god, 74. I thought I had read less books that were part of a series. I thought there were more standalones, but I guess not. But okay, that goal for this year, more standalones, less of these series books, unless it's to finish series, those count. And it says I revisited a total of 11 books this year. I guess this means I reread 11 books, although it does seem quite high because I don't remember rereading so many books. But if it says it must be true, I guess, because my memory, that it's not perfect. So, and it says you finish all of the books you picked up this year, no DNFs. That is true. I tend to finish all the books that I start, even if they are not good, because I've been surprised, not many times, but a few times, where I was not enjoying the book and the end completely surprised me and made it to be one of the best books I had read. I think I've said this in a previous video back at the start of the channel about Ricardo Pinto and his the Dance of the Stone Chameleon, the Stone of the Dance Chameleon, something like that, the series. I wasn't enjoying at the start, and then as I kept reading, it kept getting better, and then that ending was mind-blowing and I thought was completely worth everything. Another one, Stephen King, The Dark Tower. There were parts I hated and I did not enjoy at all, but that ending was worth everything, I can guarantee you. So that's my reason why not to do DNFs, but I think each for its own. If you don't like a book and you feel like there's so many other things to read that you want to read, go for it. DNF it. It's fine. There's not a book police telling you have to finish, so. And then it says I read 10 books from my own shelves this year. I have no idea what this means because all the books that I read are from my shelves, but if it's rereads, why is this number different from the 11 from before? I'm not sure what this means. But yeah. And then, of course, this has a subscription that you can pay for, and this would be to help the website and the creators. I don't particularly buy it, but I think the free version is amazing. And again, I say for more people to join because it's really worth it. And after that is just telling the books that I read this year. And as you can see, there's plenty of them. There's no point in me going through them because I've spoken plenty already, and this video is longer than I expected. But let me know what you think. I enjoy seeing this wrap up. Tell me more about your wrap up. How many books did you finish? What is your goal for this year? That is important. Let's keep each other accountable and read more, hopefully. And yeah, that's it. Let me know. Don't let me know anymore because I already told you to let me know about plenty of things. Just stick around, subscribe if you're new, and don't forget I'll be seeing you on Thursdays and Sundays, okay? See you soon.